Welcome, everyone, to a Brand Fortress HQ podcast. On this Tactics Tuesday, we're discussing what do you do when you're going after the wrong avatar or the wrong customer avatar. And this is a conversation that came up as the three of us were discussing. And Mike thinks that he discovered that he's been going after the wrong customer avatar for going on 7 years now. So with that said, Mike, I'll let you take it from there.
All right. My wife and I are out here at BDSS, and just a little plug for Kevin. If you've never been to a BDSS, the content is amazing. Everybody here is, super high level. So been some really great content, some good conversations.
And for those that don't have the magic ring, BDSS is $1 billion Seller Summit.
Yeah, good point, right? You don't have the decoder. Through some of the content that was presented, and to clarify, as much as obviously we talk about customer avatars, it wasn't any specific, mention of customer avatar or anything that really led to this. It was just kind of a few things came together in my head that basically said, "Oh, dang! Like I think I screwed this up." So we have for quite a number of years now. We kind of dialed in on a very specific customer avatar for our products. And I think maybe at the front end of this, the best thing that I could say is there's two ways that you can attack your customer avatar. And one of them is paying attention to who is the end user of the product. The other is paying attention to who's the actual buyer of the product. And I think that's where we might have gone wrong, is that we have been very hyper-focused on the end user of the product and not so focused on who I think is actually more likely to be the purchaser of the product. So for those that haven't listened to previous episodes and don't know, we sell very high-end premium pool cleaning tools with an unlimited free replacement warranty. And so the customer avatar that we, I think, very effectively nailed, at least in the sense of the user of the product, is this kind of mid to upper level management guy. He's husband, father, has a fairly expensive in-ground pool. He's probably making 150 grand a year. Very loyalty, integrity, responsibility focused. Like this is the guy, right? And so I feel like our messaging has been very good in that sense. I do believe that is our primary user. The problem is, I think, at least, and this is why I want to have this conversation, because I'm very interested in what you guys have to say about it, is the majority of buyers on Amazon are women. The stats very clearly bear out that, generally speaking, probably like 75% of the time, the person that's actually purchasing on Amazon is the woman. So from that standpoint, we are, in a sense, targeting a much smaller audience than maybe we could. But then beyond that, I feel like, and I have to be careful how I say this, because I don't want it to come across the wrong way, because I don't want it to sound like, women are just emotional and guys are always logical, because obviously guys buy all the time on impulse and emotion. So I'm not trying to make that point. However, in our messaging, what we've been working on and working toward in our messaging is kind of this idea that for this guy, who's this, middle, upper level management guy, he works his tail off. He's probably working super long hours, almost every week. He comes home. He's still that guy who, reasonably speaking, if there's something that he can do himself, he does himself and doesn't pay somebody else to do it. So that includes cleaning his pool. That includes mowing his lawn. That includes, doing, basic kind of repairs around the house. So, he's working these long hours at work. And then he's coming home and he's working hours there, taking care of all of these things around the house that need to be taken care of. He loves his family. He really wants to spend that time with the kids. He's got this pool, for the reason of spending time with his family. And unfortunately, oftentimes he doesn't get that time. And so our focus recently has been on kind of putting together materials that really dial in on that whole idea that this guy just doesn't have the time to be with his family and his kids and spend that time, enjoy that time in the pool that he envisioned, when he put the money into, putting the pool in. So that was the messaging. That's where we've been headed with this. I think, though, that we would be far better, and I'm not necessarily saying that we can't target that avatar at all, because I think we still should. But I feel like we would be better if we focused on the wife and focused in on basically pitching to her that by purchasing these products, you are in effect giving your husband the tools to be a better husband and father and spend more time with his family and enjoying more time at home because he works so hard. Why have him struggling with these, crappy tools and whatnot that take way more time to do the project? So that's kind of the epiphany that I had, is that I feel like I have a larger audience to target, because mostly it's the women who are placing the orders on Amazon, and B, I feel like we can tug that emotional string a little bit harder there and probably get more out of it. I think we can juice that a little bit more than we can with the guy. And so I feel like we have these two avatars that we likely should be targeting. One is the one that we have been, but the other one I think is actually the more critical one. And I also think it's the one that is the better target, because then it's the gifting. And so then it's, Father's Day and, Christmas and all of these other opportunities that we might have to turn this into a gifting, type situation where pitching the woman, that means that all of our messaging, at least the major messaging on our website and on our product detail page and things like that, would be more dialed in on that idea and focusing on the woman. And then we can create landing pages within the store. So like we can have a landing page that's specific to the wife, but we could also have a landing page that's specific to the husband. So we could do, Amazon ads and point them specifically to the individual landing pages that we want based on what customer avatar we're targeting. So that's the idea right now. That's the epiphany that I had, which I'm interested in having you guys tear to pieces if you think I'm wrong. But
so the first thing that I would say is, no matter how long I've been involved in working, growing brands, ads, marketing, and all that's involved with that, is, as much as I think I know, I've learned over time that really what matters is to test. And so the first thing that comes to mind for me is, how could you test this theory without completely, upending your current strategy?
Right. I have an idea, but I'm interested in what, and Matt, I don't know if you're still there. We don't have video or audio, so maybe you've stepped away. I can hear you. So it is technically, it does technically lean toward men who are buying the product. The problem from my standpoint, and the reason that I wonder about this, is because obviously the brand analytics is telling me who is buying. But if the message that I'm putting out there is a message that completely resonates with a man, then that's kind of how that's going to roll. So I think, in a sense, I think I've skewed my own brand analytics. Like, we've used that to some degree as the basis for building out this avatar. It wasn't the only information that we used, but it was significant in building out this avatar. So I feel like to some degree it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. We assumed from the beginning to some degree that was the avatar, and now we've created that as the avatar, and built it into our data just because of who we targeted, I think. We have a single account that we both use. And for us, I would say, well, I mean, she probably does do most of the purchases, to be honest. I mean, because I'm the cook, you know, a lot of what I buy off of Amazon that's kitchen related, you know, I would purchase. So that skews things a little bit because I do think there's a lot of stuff that gets purchased, of course, that, you know, is either food or kitchen gadgets, things like that. And in most families, of course, the guy is not necessarily the cook. So I think that would be the only reason why, you know, in terms of purchases on our account, that it would skew my direction a little bit. Other than that, she definitely is the one who makes, you know, the most purchases on our account, but we only one. Mhm. Right. Right. Is attributing to you. Right.
That's
Yeah,
a
for
great
sure.
point because what I'm realizing is that all three of us are in that same boat. So I also am, my name is on the Prime account and my wife uses my Prime account. So like you said, Matt,
Yeah.
I'm sure the analytics shows, you know, when you look at the demographics that it's being purchased by, you know, a male and as opposed to a female, which probably has some really interesting purchases that go along with that. So,
Yeah. And you have to assume, yeah, we're cross dressers and the whole nine yards,
yep,
right?
bought a couple of sundresses in my day apparently.
Yeah. Which begs the question, like, you know that Amazon is not stupid. So there has to be something built into their system that tries to suss that out because they know multiple people are buying on the same account. They've got to have ways that they kind of separate that. But at the same time, I guarantee it's not perfect. And
Yeah,
so, you know, especially if it's a product that isn't an obvious, you know, a product that obviously skews one way or another, then maybe they are getting that wrong. And again, same thing, like coming back to this same conversation. Let's say that it's pool tools, right? If you were to look at that purely from the idea of end user, then you would assume that it's the men who are purchasing those. And so for a product like that, is Amazon just simply making that assumption that the owner of the account is the purchaser because it's a tool, as opposed to who might have bought it as, you know, as a gift or as a, you know, a thing to give to their husband to say, hey, you know, this would make your life a whole lot easier. So I think it's highly likely that even though my Rand Analytics says it's this guy, I think it's actually more commonly his wife who's probably buying it for him. And I think that messaging would resonate better for us. But I do think you're right, John. I think we need to just test it. And I have an idea for that. But right,
yeah, I think that'd be a good place to start and probably give you some good indications. I think Amazon should be paying me $1 for every time I bring it up, but Amazon, especially the new Amazon bundles, in being able to customize those, I'd be very interested just from a testing and data perspective. Amazon ads really gives you, I think, probably the most robust data looking at, okay, I got X number of impressions, Y number of people clicked, and
Right.
Z number of people actually converted on that, to where
Right.
you could pretty easily set up, without having to create a whole new product and everything else that's involved with that, essentially a virtual bundle that then you could change up some of the images and the wording and the title and that type of stuff to test that new customer avatar, and then run some ads against it and see, hey, did it, out well, and you want to create one for your current avatar and one for your new avatar, run the
Right.
same ads, and to them, and see which ones performs better. And I think that would give you at least a better indication of if you're on the right track as far as that, going after a different customer avatar.
Yeah, for sure. I think another option that I think a lot of sellers don't take enough advantage of, and we're in that boat as well, to be honest, is your brand store, because you can create custom landing pages within your brand store. We could easily create a landing page that is specifically for the wife, and then another landing page that is specifically for the husband. And then we could create sponsored brand ads that, because we can customize the creative, so we could create those so that the whole funnel is specific to the avatar. So we could create that sponsored brand ad where we're highlighting in that custom creative image is directed at the husband, and then we could create one that's directed at the wife, direct them to the specific landing page that we're talking about. We can put the product on there with an add to cart, so we could have all of the product information could literally be right on that landing page, so they don't have to go anywhere else. They see all the information there and just see how many add to cart, how many add to carts and purchases do we get, how many click throughs do we get on the initial ad. I think that information would probably be the closest to reality. PickFu is useful, I think, and I think it might be potentially a good place to start to help us nail down what should those landing pages look like. So maybe PickFu is the place where, as you suggested, Matt, maybe we create some content and see how well it performs for the wife, because we kind of already know the guy, like that avatar we've got, but working out the details of what does that messaging look like for the wife, and then doing the testing through an actual Amazon brand ad, and pointing it to a specific landing page and seeing what we get out of that. Right, right. No, not at all. I think ultimately, I think most guys fall into that boat. I mean, we're tool people, I mean, as a rule. So even if it's not a power tool, it's still like, if I got if I got this super heavy duty upgraded pool pole that had this amazing locking mechanism and whatnot, and I knew that it was going to make my life easier, I would be ecstatic. And I think every wife out there is well aware of the fact that their husband would be ecstatic over that, because I know it's going to save me time, right? Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think you're on track. Either way, you should be testing your customer avatar, especially when you have, kind of these, brainwaves that pop up. And because there might be another option out there, or, there might be, you may come up with a strategy to really get the best of both worlds. With that said, I will say that what this kind of reminds me of, or I think the quintessential from a marketing perspective, uh, anecdote for this is kind of cereal and kids versus mom. So if you think about, the um, Fruity Pebbles and Fruit Loops and all those other cereals, I mean,
Right.
where do they advertise? They advertise on, well, back in the day, when you didn't have
Yeah,
streaming 24/7. They used to advertise on Saturday morning cartoons, and
right.
then the kids would go bother their parents to buy the cereal that was frankly the coolest. So when I look at it from that perspective, it's who's the end user versus who's the actual purchaser. So in that scenario, the end user was the kid, and they're the ones that were really pushing, their parent to go, or their mom to buy that cereal. So in your scenario, I just wonder, that end user is most likely the guy cleaning the pool. So he probably cares the most about whether he gets some, you know, piece of junk that's going to break in a month or two versus, a super high quality product that's going to make that process a lot faster and a lot more enjoyable because he's not working with junk.
Well, and I think that taps back into that idea of how are you marketing the product, and to which avatar are you marketing the product. So interestingly, first, I think as listeners, one of the key takeaways I think from this particular podcast episode is A, you might not be targeting the right avatar, or B, there might be two equally relevant avatars that you should be targeting in different ways, but that you have to evaluate. Because again, like you said, John, in the case of cereal, marketing it to the kid is the way to go, because the kid's going to be like, mom, 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 I want this, I want this, I want this, right? In my case, if I assume, and we'll have to do some testing on this to find out, but if I assume that the woman is the one who's likely the one that's going to be the end buyer as opposed to the user, then who do I target, right? Well, if I target the man, I don't think the husband is going to go to the wife and say, "Hey, I really would like to buy this," whatever. Like, I mean, yeah, it's kind of expensive, so maybe, maybe he is. But the point is, it's not the same scenario, right? Like, I
Right.
think you have to evaluate your product and evaluate, is the end user in this scenario somebody who couldn't buy it themselves, right? The kid can't go buy it themselves, so it's going to be mom, 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 and the mom's going to be like, fine, whatever, Fruity Pebbles, right? And so that's the way they've used that. That's how that worked. The marketing was effective that way. This is a different scenario. It's not going to be the husband going, wife, 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 I want to buy this. It's not going to work like that. So I
Yeah.
think you have to look at the psychology of the situation in the product that you're selling, figure out who the end user is, figure out who the likely buyer is, and maybe target both of those avatars to see, maybe they're both equally relevant and they both generate the same amount of dollars, but by separating them out and getting your messaging right for each audience, you do better. But it may be that only one of those audiences is the one that you really want to be targeting, and you better figure out which one it is, and test that out. And so I think that's where we are, is that we just need to figure it out.
Well, and even moving beyond, kind of the stereotypical gender roles, as you're talking about that, what I think about is you have people who are just naturally, they're shoppers. They got kind of a list in their head and they're looking for kind of that cool new whatever, and they're very open to a lot of different things that they let percolate for a while. And then you have people that are, I don't even know the right words, but basically, required to purchase type of things where they're trying to solve an immediate problem. And I just say that because I fall into the bucket of, I generally am not, the way I look at something is I go, okay, here's a problem that I have, and now I'll go look for a solution. But if I don't have a problem, like, I'm not cruising through Amazon for any category looking for, random products, even in categories that I know. Let's just use something like, that I'm really nerdy about, like protein powder. Like,
Right.
I kind of find the couple of brands that I like, and that's kind of my thing. So I just wonder if there's, kind of moving beyond the gender stereotypes of looking at it through the lens of problem solution customer versus, shopping customer, and how do
Right.
you speak to those two different audiences?
Right. Right. Right.
Now the question is,
Well,
do
and I
you feel
think,
bad when you click on somebody's ad? Because I definitely do. I'm like,
I never do
I'm
either.
I'm only going to click on this ad if I'm serious about buying this product because I know that this is going to cost this guy like $3 to $5.
I know. I never click. I never click the ad. I'm like, no, I'm not going to screw this guy that way. So, but, but back to, that idea, John, of the, window shopper versus, problem solution kind of a thing, is that I think that's likely the primary distinction between the messaging that we're looking at here, is because for the man, if we're selling to him, we're selling this kind of problem solution thing. Now, that doesn't mean that, in a sense, we're not selling that to the wife, but that's not actually what we're selling to the wife. What we're selling to the wife is, you want your husband to be the hero. Help him be that. Here's the tools to help him be that, because he'll be done cleaning the pool 3 times faster than he would with anybody else's tools. And then guess what? He's spending time with your kids in the pool for the rest of the day. And so I think that's the difference in that messaging, is that yes, this product is solving a problem, but the problem that it's solving is different. The problem that it's solving is your husband never has time for family. This gives him time with family. This makes his life easier. This relieves his frustration at the pool when his tools break and the warranty, nobody stands behind the warranty. It makes his life easier, and it makes him, gives him that opportunity to be that better dad, to spend more time with his kids instead of spending time, cleaning the pool.
And I mean, I'm not a pool owner and I'm not your target customer, but what you just touched on there, as far as like even more than time aspect to me, when at this point, when I look at different, products that I'm buying, especially when it comes to tools, I'm looking at the one that is going to cause the least amount of frustration, because I'm just at that point in my life where I would much rather spend a little more money to have something that's quality, that's going to do the job, than trying to make a cheap piece of junk work. And so I think that's the other aspect that I would think about too, in addition to the time, is just the level of frustration. And if you look at that from, the spouse's perspective of, nobody likes it when, their spouse is grumpy because they, just spent 30 minutes, fighting with whatever tool it happened to do in order to accomplish, cleaning the pool or mowing the lawn or whatever it happens to be.
Well, I think that's a great angle too, because if you think about it, you could easily take that down that road of your husband deals with a million problems all day long, every day at work. Why not solve one of his problems here? Why not relieve one of those frustrations that he no longer has to deal with? All day long is frustration. Let this not be one of those things. So, I mean, we'll see what that messaging looks like, but at the end of the day, I think that's kind of what we need to start testing. So I just thought it'd be an interesting conversation, because literally we've been targeting this avatar for years, and
You've been
I'm
wrong for
actually starting
7 years.
I'm starting to think it's the wrong avatar. So I guess we'll find out. But
All right. Well, as we wrap on this episode, and having had this discussion, what is maybe, one action item that, or one takeaway that you'd give for listeners?
my biggest takeaway, honestly, is just to sit down and think through that idea of end user versus buyer, because I think all too often we probably focus exclusively on the end user, which maybe it's one and the same avatar, and that's fine, that's great. But there's a decent chance it might not be. And I also think that if you separate out that idea of end user and potential buyer in terms of a gift, then you also have that opportunity to modify that messaging when it comes, whether it's Father's Day or Mother's Day or birthdays. I mean, it was one of the things that actually came to mind as we were talking this through, is that every day, somewhere out there, a pool owner husband is having a birthday, and there's a wife who's looking for the thing to buy him for his birthday. And every day there's a whole bunch of them. So you could literally run ads, say on Facebook or, some other platform that is focused on that idea, of just, it's the birthday gift for the husband. I don't know if it still does it. Facebook used to allow you to actually target people by life events, and you might even be able to target it by, husbands having a birthday. I can't remember, but that sort of thing, separating out those avatars that way, I think it's valuable to understand that perspective of end user versus the buyer.
Absolutely. Matt, anything that you want to add before we wrap up?
I think one more thing before we wrap up too that comes to mind is don't underestimate the value of your post-purchase process in having available to you a group of individuals who have purchased your product that you could ask. That's one thing that we haven't really done. We haven't surveyed our customers to ask them specifically, who did you buy it for and why did you buy it? We've always made the assumption that whoever's on our list was the individual who, A, the one who purchased it, and B, that they purchased it for themselves, or something. And so I think it would actually be valuable if we just sent out a survey to find out who bought it and who'd you buy it for, and, walking through that process to really kind of suss out that idea of buyer versus end user, and why did you buy it? What were the things that stuck out to you as the end user or as the gift buyer, whatever it is. I think there's a lot of information to be gleaned there. And again, having that post-purchase process in place and building out that list so you have those individuals that you can survey in that way because they like your company. And if the messaging is right in terms of we need your help and we're trying to understand our audience better and so we can serve you better and those sorts of things, which is true. All of that's true. You're not lying to them. But generally speaking, they're very responsive to that kind of thing. And so I think that's another avenue.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap for today, and some fantastic takeaways for our listeners as they think about not only who is their current customer avatar, but how they can test other customer avatars that may bring their brand forward and help them, grow continually on Amazon and beyond.